Good Friday morning. It is a cool 62 degrees here in Austin, Texas, especially here on the hilltop. Today I'm joined by an awesome band I still listen to all the time. His name is Chase from This Cold Night. Welcome. How's it going, man?
It's going good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Just a little chilly. It's a day of the Batman showing, so kind of getting a little pumped. You plan to watch it soon, or?
For me, I was supposed to watch it yesterday, but I missed my opportunity. So you got to tell me how it is.
All right, we'll do, man. We'll do. Well, like I said, thanks for joining us here today on the hilltop, especially here on All Access Garage. It means a lot that I believe you mentioned it's almost like 6 in the morning for you over there. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's
I moved actually away from Austin just like last week, so I'm still getting used to the time change myself. But
oh,
yeah, I'm in Vancouver, Washington right now, not to be confused with the Vancouver that's not in Washington,
well,
or the
right on.
Washington that's not Washington State.
There you go, right? Well, I mean, do you still wake up usually around the Texas time zone at times? Do you find yourself?
Well, I have to work. I work actually at UT of Austin still, which is pretty neat that I'm able to carry my job over where I am. So I get up every morning, Texas time. Yeah, even though I'm very far away and the time is completely different. But I've always been an early bird, so it's fine.
Well, right on, man. Well, yeah, we're honored to have you here and just chill out with us for a bit. And again, we always bump your music. At least I'm the one who always bumps the music all the time. So, like I said, it's kind of a pleasure to have you personally for me. But anyways, let's start from the top, man. How did this project, this cold night, come into? How did it start for you?
Yeah. So this cold night, it's always been like my thing. Like it's always been kind of an extension of myself. I started making music uh, under the artist name This Cold Night in 2014. Before that, I was just kind of experimenting with uh, like noise cassette tapes and just doing stupid stuff like that. And I was just trying to learn how to do like audio production and learn how to do my own recording and learn how to use my own voice, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, so I released my first solo stuff in 2014. I did all of the production and recording on it myself and got hooked. Couldn't stop, just kept going. Yeah, that's how it started for me at least.
Right on, yeah, dude. And I mean, it's so far. I think the kind of looking back, I think one of the songs that I started listening to, and I think you killed it there. And I know I know it's your top song is Black Cathedral, and later on we'll get into a little bit more of how you do these. But yeah, again, the idea that what you mentioned, just using stuff that's with you, it's so groovy. I don't know, the music just kind of just makes you just want to like flick your hand, just snap your fingers at the same time walking down downtown.
Yeah.
It's so fun to listen to. So you know what you're doing for sure, and I think that's pretty awesome. But for you though, was there anyone possibly or anything that kind of inspired you to get into the music scene, perhaps?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I could talk about like artists, that I like and music that I would listen to growing up, but honestly, like that's pretty normal. Everyone does stuff like that. For me, like I'm just gonna name a single person who's a friend, and she literally uh, gave me the confidence and the courage to keep going, making music. Gabi Weinstein of Ghost Noise, close friend of mine. She was actually like, so I released my first stuff in 2014, and it was on Bandcamp. It was a digital release, and I didn't make like any sales or anything. I didn't, like, do you sell your music for the first time? I don't know. Like, you just give it away. I don't know, right? But she was the very first person to actually purchase, and I didn't even know her at this time. But she also sent me like an email. It was like, "Hey, I really like what you're doing." Blah blah blah. Yeah. So like after that, like she's in a band too. Met up with her in LA. We toured together, et cetera, et cetera. I keep doing that. Sorry. But yeah, yeah. So Gabi Weinstein, she's definitely kept me in the game.
No, well, thanks to Gabby. Now you just actually just finished releasing "Are We Not Immortal Yet,"
Hmm.
which I had the privilege of listening to, and again, it feels like a This Cold Night, song. It feels like a This Cold Night album, which again we'll go into a little bit more in detail later on. But a lot of artists, in my opinion, aren't really. Some of them can't really, like, for example, if you go to one artist, sometimes they try experimenting, it doesn't sound like their music, but this one sounds like a This Cold Night album, which I think you totally killed it on for sure.
Thank
Which
you.
I think that's something that really cool. But just kind of This Cold Night, right? Where, why that name, and is there possibly a story behind that?
Yeah, sure. So way back, 2014. I keep taking us back there. Picture a rainy, cold night in the middle of February in Austin. Uh, yeah, no, for me, I'm just making a joke. For me, This Cold Night's always about, it is about a moment in time, but it's more of like a metaphor, right? Symbolism. It's about uh, the idea behind This Cold Night. It's about everything coming together and like some sort of like realization happening, um, or maybe um, uh, just like you're super overwhelmed, or maybe like you're just like at some extreme point of emotion in your life, and that is what This Cold Night is about. I try to write all of my songs, and you talk about like the This Cold Night sound. I think the reason This Cold Night even has a sound is because I write all of the songs from like my own neuroses, like my own little loops, like everything's coming from my brain. I think the lyrical components of my songwriting, I think, captures those moments in time, whether it's Black Cathedral or Enigmatic Individual or what have you, one of my newer songs. I always try to tell a story.
Right on, yeah. And I mean, again, I think I don't know, your voice inside the songs that you're playing, that you made, it's just so solid. It feels, I guess, in a sense, the way the name of the band sounds, This Cold Night, it kind of matches the tone, and I don't know, when I'm listening to it, it's just, again, the idea that it's just, and it's gonna sound corny, but This Cold Night, you match it, you really do, and I think that's what something that you killed it with. And I know I keep going on, and I'm like, come on, yeah, yeah, but it's just, for people who haven't listened to it, I highly encourage to, because it's something that Chase killed it on. Even in his new album, Are We Not Immortal Yet? And you were so kind enough to send me a copy on it on Bandcamp the first time we chatted, and it was pretty cool. I think it was like a day before the release, if I'm correct, or something like that. Either way, I was so excited to get my hands on it a little bit earlier than the general population, and I'm just there like. I'm like, what do I do with this power? I was holding it and everything. So
And you leak it. You just
yeah, no,
throw
no, I'm not
it.
gonna. But
No.
it was pretty cool, man. And
One of the things that I really like to do, and I do this because people did this with me, because I feel like growing up, like like I was super into music, and I still am super into music. Like I would always like reach out to artists and stuff that I appreciated, both like independent, smaller artists, and also like larger artists sometimes, just to see if anything would happen, if they would like respond, which it usually no. But like for the smaller artists, like you know, it's so important to me with my music that people realize that I'm just a person. I'm just a person making music, and I'm not like an uh, anyone unapproachable or something like that. Like it's bizarre. I feel like the whole artist pop mentality is it's pretty toxic. Um, but there's a lot of toxic things in our society, so we don't really want to dig too deeply into that probably. But
no, of course, yeah. And I mean, I think, like I mentioned to you beforehand, I always had that stigma, unfortunately, where it was more that the people we listened to were just kind of these robots in a sense. But when you talk to them, even when you just DM them, whether it be on Instagram, you send them an email or whatnot, um, you realize they're just people just like you who have normal lives, who do normal
um,
things, right? Eat the same food, all this kind of stuff. So it's interesting, and I mean, um, I think the other day I was talking to someone else, and they were mentioning how even artists have artists they adore and they idolize, and it's something that you just doesn't it didn't click in my brain until you kind of think about it. So I can understand why you say that. Um,
That's why you don't want to meet your idols, right?
yeah, well, I
It's
mean,
because you realize they're just
some
humans like you.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you could totally say that. I mean, the people that I've talked to so far, the people who've come in, these people have a lot of them, including your music, has been there since high school. I think back in 2015 is when I discovered, which was your self-titled "This Cold Night." I was down in South Texas, and that's when I started listening a little bit more, and that's when later on when you released right here while I disappeared in 2016. That was my junior year of high school, and that's when I heard the what is it called, Black Cathedral, which in high school again it was just much more of that. It was a mood for me in high school. Let's put it that way, and whatnot. But
It
yeah,
was a
man.
mood for me too. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, again, it's pretty cool when you get to talk to the people that you've known for a while. And I know that there's that saying, never meet your idols because sometimes you'll be disappointed. But I'm not. I think I'm privileged enough to have the platform that I have, and sharing it with people. And again, the idea is these are just normal people like myself, like everyone else. So I think that's blowing that stigma out of the water,
Yeah.
right?
Not only
But
normal people, but normal people with other things than music sometimes too, which
yeah,
is interesting because a lot of emails I get, it's like, hey, will you come to this? Will you come to this? Will you tour here? It's like, dude, I just moved. Like, I got a lot of stuff going on in my life. I can't, drop everything and whatever.
of course. Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I want to. I would love to. And that's the most frustrating thing with stuff like that is because it's like I want to go tour there, I want to go do this and that and do all that, but I have my whole life holding me back. Unfortunately, I guess that's really the difference between full time musician versus whatever I do.
No, of course. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I guess this is a good transition to the next question in a sense. Um, outside of music, do you have any hobbies you like to do? Any sports? Attending events, perhaps?
Sports. I've never been one for sport. Uh, I'm I have I guess my professional life is considered a hobby because I really do enjoy it. And I think some of this comes through in my music at times, or at least on my website or in some of my artwork, whether it's like design. But I'm a software engineer, so I like computer stuff. So I mess around with computer things a lot, and I think that's also going way back uh, uh, into my childhood. Like I've always had a passion for computers and video games back then, building computers. That definitely fed into learning how to record music for me. So those my two passions have always been intertwined, and yeah, I don't see that stopping anytime soon.
I don't know. And I mean, you said you mentioned you build with computers. Is it more of and especially kind of, I guess this is my own personal question, right? But do you build like PCs for like gamers? Do you have your own rig or something like that?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean I do that all for myself. Building computers, yeah, that's what it is. I do that all for myself mostly. I don't do that professionally or anything like that. But professionally, I'm a software engineer, and it's fine. It's kind of like a glorified sys admin or something. I don't know.
What's cool, dude? I don't have patience for that. So all glory to you on that. It's just something that like with me, as soon as my computer, I just bought one, and it's just like sometimes it just aggravates me because I don't know what I'm doing, and I just kind of give up, and I'm like, I'm just gonna call someone to help me out because it's
Well,
just
there you go.
glory to you, man. I literally, again, for me, it's just so frustrating to work with technology, and again, it just with me
Yeah,
again.
I get it. And I feel like my relationship with technology has also changed. Like before, it was like this is kind of like my approach to learning things as well. Like part of my job, I have to learn about um, like new code, new technology. I'm basically learning all the time for my job. And previously, what I would do is like I would get frustrated, with like tech things like that, and just kind of like, oh, this is going to take forever. Maybe I'll find some alternative instead of learning how to do it the right way or something, or learning how to do this in this way. And yeah, now I'm more of the mindset where it's like, this is going to take forever. Well, what else am I doing? Lockdown or whatever. It's like, let's devote the time. Why
Yeah.
not?
Um, so it kind of also leads into perhaps if it wasn't for music, do you think you what do you think you'd be doing right now? Perhaps I understand you have your
Mm.
software job, but perhaps do you think you still stick with that for sure?
Uh, I've this is like a really detailed answer, but and there's more here if you want to talk about it. But yeah, lately I feel like within the past year with like my moving, I've done a lot of like growth, personal growth, where I feel like before music was everything and was my entire life, and it is still my everything. Like I will continue to make music uh, always uh, because I have to, but it's less of the first thing in my mind, right? So uh, with my last release, I did a lot of the design work and a lot of the other stuff. So I almost like am stopping to see myself right now as like a song or as a musician per se. I guess I would consider myself more of like an editor or a songwriter or something. So I guess if I wasn't doing the music, I would do some closely related art form. I may be doing like album covers or something, or maybe I would do sculpting. I don't know. I just feel like I would have to be doing something creative at some point, just because that's how my brain works.
Right on. Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting take. A lot of people would just be like, and not that I'm comparing, but rather they would take different approaches. But I think that's interesting how you would specifically be in the arts. And I mean, I think I've mentioned it. I'll say it again. Art is such a beautiful way of expressing yourself and showing who you are as a person. And I feel like and perhaps maybe you can attest to this point, but I know that a lot of people were mentioning how their music reflects them. I think someone mentioned, I don't make music for anyone, I make it for myself.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you can attest to that, to the point where it's your music and it's something that you've made and that's what you're proud of, and if whether or not people like it or not, that's what you've done and achieved. you know
Yeah, yeah, no, I would say that I don't even have to add any more to that. We can just say that. That's perfect.
no, yeah,
But no, no, one thing I will add to that. No, I agree with that completely. Uh, eh, for in terms of ownership of music, like whether it be mine or an audience or something, like that is something I've struggled with in the past. Like when I first released my stuff, like you don't really have an audience, right? So it doesn't matter. The music is completely yours. So you just release it, and that's what it is. Uh, but I feel like with each release I do, all of my like creative juices and all of like it slows down just because I'm thinking more and more about the audience, which I don't like doing. Uh, but because in that way I do kind of give ownership to them. I'm letting them dictate the actions of my art, which is annoying. But that's just an own internal struggle I deal with.
oh yeah, yeah. And but again, the music, like and I keep bringing it up all the time, but it's just you know, I'm happy that like I mentioned, the your newest release, Are We Not Immortal Yet? It sounds like a This Cold Night, album, and I feel like
Yeah.
you took,
Which is interesting because I didn't mix this one. This is the first album, well, kind of like the first release in a long time. I tried to take well, mostly because I didn't have the time or the energy. I'm just so tired. I'm just so tired. Uh, to uh, to to complete it on my own. I had to go to. I mean, I not had to. I wanted to. I went to a really cool mixing engineer in Canada who worked with an artist I really respect. Uh, and uh, yeah, they did a really good job, I think. I'm trying to think how it fits into the idea of it being a This Cold Night record. Uh, yeah, so I think that with the songwriting and the lyrics and all that stuff, like I think that's where my sound comes from. And then he kind of took direction from me, but I let him do his own thing, like which is pretty cool. Like you could tell he definitely uh, you know, listened to my stuff and paid attention. His name's Jordan Coop, by the way, and he worked with Spencer Krug, who's in a few different bands.
Of course, yeah, and I mean, I think it's totally cool how again you're sticking to it's your work is you, and I feel like that's what makes music is that it's not an opinion of someone else. It's more of your artwork. It should be your artwork. No one should. If they don't like your music, then just don't listen. But the idea is that like, and it's true
Exactly.
because it's
Yeah,
like
that's right.
if you don't like it, then don't listen to it. The idea is it's their music. It's something
Yeah.
that they've created and it's something that they enjoy. And I feel like that's something that again, and I know I keep saying it over. I'm kind of at this point a broken record, but it's something that you stuck to, and it's something that I think you killed on it, which is great because again, a lot of artists tend to stray like it's just like there's someone who just goes like all the ways and they're not true to themselves, and I think that's what kind of kills the vibe for me, if that makes sense. And whereas for example, you stick to that, you stick to what this cold night is, to what you like and what you feel like is appropriate, if that makes sense.
I almost feel like I don't have a choice. I have to, I have to stick to who I am, or else I wouldn't be making art, right? Or it wouldn't feel like art to me. Which, in that case, why even release it? I don't know.
Yeah, but of course, it's already about what we're in March already, so it's about to be 2 years officially in the pandemic, right? So it's
Yeah.
nuts to even say we got to this point. But
My brain broke like a month in, so I feel like ever since then it's like uh, I
time just free. It's all distorted at this point.
yeah, time's distorted, space is distorted for all
There
I
you
know.
go.
Yeah.
Right? But how have you tried to overcome the pandemic when it comes to your music? Is there a certain approach that you took, perhaps, especially kind of make with your new album release? Um, how did you kind of manage to get through it, perhaps?
Yeah. So when the pandemic actually first, like the onset of it, I was in the middle of doing a crowdfunding campaign to release a record of my past songs, um, my past hits. uh, and part of that campaign was like I would send letters to people who were supporters of my crowdfunding, and they would send like we would have a written communication in the mail with like a few hundred people or whatever. And so that got me through like the first few months of the pandemic. That was pretty fun. Um, but then after that, we're all here, we're all in it together. I don't know, it's a weird world. I kind of I got therapy. That was helpful. I recommend everybody getting therapy if you need it, or if you think you don't need it, maybe you do. um uh yeah, no, to be honest, the pandemic, it in music for me, it has just made me a lot more isolated, and in my music writing. It has made me hate people a little bit more, just because I see a lot more displays of just disgusting behavior, which is, Texas, you know how it is.
Um,
Like, go to a self checkout like 2 months, like in the heart of the pandemic. Go to a self checkout in the HEB or whatever, and like you're gonna have anti-maskers and anti uh, vax people like yelling at like the people who are just trying to like approve their ID, like
yeah, it's
just employees, like it's just crazy. I'm so tired of people. I just want to I've kind of like I feel like I've kind of like curled up in a ball out of like necessity. Like I'm in the fetal position right now, and uh I don't know if I'm gonna get out anytime soon, but I think we're all there.
of course, yeah, and I mean, it's important that we take care of our mental health. I think that's something that's I'm very verbal about. As someone who's I'm not diagnosed, but I've worked with the EMS and I've seen certain things that's kind of messed with me a bit. It's important to talk about stuff and to express yourself. Because I think the idea is that your mental health is something that's extremely important, and I'm pretty sure it's something maybe you could attest to. Um, Especially I don't want to, I hate to bring it to like the music aspect, but it's more that, you know, I don't know if you've heard of the band called New Country Black Roads or something like that.
Mm-mm.
Where one of their main singers, Isaac, had left due to mental health reasons. I feel like it's important that, we take care of that stuff because, again, I've seen it to where people, sometimes unfortunately lose their lives. They do things that, are just so permanent, rather. Let's put it like that, right? And, just the idea of that, it's just not fun to think about. So, to your point, mental health, it's always good. And to people who are listening, if you need help, reach out, talk to a friend, talk to a buddy, talk to, someone who's going to be there and helping you out. I feel like that's always an important thing, to get help. I feel like, a lot of people don't realize that, especially here in Texas, right? It's a big old red state, kind of that mentality of manning up and whatnot. I think that's such a shitty, I feel like that's such a shitty, ideal thing here.
I guess, yeah. People, there's a lot of shitty things people do there, but there's shitty things people do everywhere. But
Of course,
people are just kind
definitely.
of shitty sometimes, right?
No, of course, definitely. I totally agree. But, besides the
Yeah,
point, yeah.
mental health, very important. I can say for me, yeah. So like my little, I feel like a lot of not just art. I mean, everybody's going through increased stress and whatever. I mean, everyone's heard this already. We're like 2 years in. I don't know. The pandemic. I guess it's. Oh, is it over? I don't know. Is it like, are we moving on? I don't know. I just haven't seen people in a long time. Kind of makes me like I feel like a weird old man before I'm old, which is kind of cool, I guess. I don't know. But anyway, no, my mental health struggle during the pandemic. Yeah, I started just kind of, like it was like super depressed, obviously. I mean, who wasn't? Who isn't? Super, I already have like anxiety issues. Like, I mean, I'm weird as, all heck on this uh, interview. So you can tell that all already. Um, uh, yeah. So I was struggling with all that stuff. Then I got uh, diagnosed with something, which was good. It's always good to have a diagnosis uh, with several things. And then I got medication, which is also helpful. Uh, and like there was actually, I did like it was actually like a bipolar thing. I did therapy for like an intensive therapy session for like 6 months, and it was really helpful. Market like improvements in my life. Like I actually after that I was able to take the step forward to actually like try to do this move that I made. It's very difficult to move. It's not an easy thing. It's very for someone who's an anxious person to begin with. Like just little. I mean that's a big thing, but even little things like I was able to do better and like handle. So I really do recommend therapy. I recommend medication if you need it. But yeah, that's just my little story. Of course, everyone's different.
Right on. Well, I'm glad that, hopefully you are doing a little bit better. We hope that, everything gets, easier, hopefully you find maybe the change of scenery a little bit easier, whatnot.
Yeah, change of scenery, change of like the political,
Oh God, yeah.
affiliations, and like people just kind of are different here. I've noticed like people, like everyone always says, like Texas is supposed to be known for like the friendly people. I've never gotten that. Of course, I'm like a queer boy in Austin, Texas, in the city. Uh, so I feel Uh, but I don't know. Like people were like always friendly, but sometimes it was like too friendly. Whereas here, people are just like a smile and
Just a little
like a
like,
wave.
hey y'all.
Yeah, it's like everyone's like friendly, but minding their own business, and that's basically. I think that's the kind of environment, the cultural, kind
Of
of
course.
stuff that I want to be around. That jives with my inner mechanics.
Right on. Well, I hope where you're at is treating you well, and we wish you the best of luck on that. But kind of looking back on tours you've done, maybe shows you performed at, how has it put the live music scene into perspective for you? Perhaps do you kind of do you kind of get a little bit nervous before there and then it just goes away, or how does that work?
Oh man. Yeah, I get terribly nervous before shows and during shows. I used to. So another thing, so this is a going in talking with therapy or going back to the therapy discussion. I don't mind sharing this, but I used to like be like drink. I used to drink a lot, like a lot, and definitely to an unhealthy amount. And I'd use that as a fuel, energy for my live performances. So like I would always have a really good time. I always put on quite a show, but it was pretty self-destructive. Probably not the healthiest or the not a good, yeah, not a good thing to do in general. So yes, all that saying, I get anxious before shows. I haven't performed a show in a little bit because of the pandemic. I have not performed shows since I've been through therapy and since I've been medicated. So I'm kind of curious to see how I would feel right before I went on. I'll have to do that sometime soon.
Well, of course, I don't want to add on to the more stuff you have, but I'll be anticipating the time, you decide to, start rocking on again, and just know that you always have someone there who will always be like, I know him, just screaming and everything. So, again, I'm just, I tend to go ahead and, the people I listen to, there's just a connection that I have. I guess kind of putting myself into that. There's a connection that I have, especially towards the stories that you tell. I can't say that I've had the exact experiences or stories, stuff like that, but it's just the idea that, the I guess the things that I listen to kind of has a story to my own life in a sense
Hmm.
where whether it be through a friendship that I went through or something like that. So it's just something that like, had close to my heart when it comes to a lot of music like that. So,
Yeah, I
um,
think that's one of the, I think you touched on one of the key reasons why I actually love music so much. It's because in my mind, this is how I see it at least, or how I interpret music. It's something that, so say I write a song. This song is all me, like here's the song. I give you this song and, you know, you listen to it, you reconstruct the meaning in your own head, right? And I think that's like so the most powerful thing about music. It's like the big unknown. It's this big mystery. It's like I'm able to create something and put it out in the universe, and you're able to like reconstruct it in your own head. I think that's pretty neat
of course,
because
and
you're putting your own meaning into it. You're putting your own stories into it. It's becoming so much more personal to you.
of course, and
Love
I
it.
think that's something that's so beautiful about music is that you actually can go ahead and like you mentioned, reconstruct it and make it kind of not necessarily change the narrative, but also put it into what you as an individual what you can interpret it as.
Mm.
I think that's something that it's very awesome is that you can interpret it one way and I can interpret it another, yet it's still the song we listen to, and I think that's pretty cool. I think that's, and I've always mentioned it.
It's
Music can
unifying
just
in a way,
it is
like it's
right,
two people with two different ideas listening to the same thing and coming together. Like you can't beat
exactly.
that. If only the world were structured that way.
Oh man, only if right, we can only imagine, right?
Yeah.
But just you have a kind of of course the whole controversy with Spotify. We're not going to get into that, but
No, let's do it.
the idea
Why not?
I mean, if you want to,
I
I
don't know.
mean,
What's the
um,
controversy? Is this the censorship stuff or the Joe
yeah, I think with
Rogan
like the whole
thing?
Joe Rogan thing where they're allowing this whole misinformation,
Yeah.
unfortunately,
I don't
it's
know. When it comes to anyone's platforms, like it's very difficult as like as an artist. Like I, I take it's obviously it's a controversy because it's difficult, right? And you kind of have to fall on one side or the other, right? Um, so like, what side do I take? Uh, for me, I think it's a very difficult thing to ask an artist to remove their music from a platform based off of something that is completely out of their control. That's my take on it. Obviously, Spotify's doing the wrong thing, but like I'm not going to go down and like I'm not going to take my music off of Spotify because that's how I share my music. If I didn't do that, then like there would be no other platform for me, and that's kind of like the way it's. I don't know. I guess I see my music more as like platform independent. Let's say that, right? So I can put my music up on anything, anywhere, at any time because I can do it all myself and I own all of it. So as long as I have that, I don't really care.
Yeah, and I mean, like you mentioned, there's a big responsibility, especially when it comes to the person uploading anything. The privilege of the platform that we have. It's interesting because the idea is that, for example, like something like just even something like this, when I'm doing, you know, not that I have to censor myself, because I don't feel like that's something necessary. But of course, like you mentioned, yeah, it's either you lean on one side or the other, and I feel like that shouldn't be a conversation that should even be happening. I feel like everyone, of course, there's some misinformation that people are sticking out there, unfortunately, and some people aren't. But yeah, I mean, I don't know what to say on that end. I think that's something that, like you mentioned, you shouldn't feel guilty to an extent what you put out there. If I don't know if I'm kind of catching the right vibes on what you're trying to mention there.
I'm not necessarily guilty. I mean, you have as an artist or someone creating content, you have a responsibility to at the very most, just be honest and represent yourself and not be disingenuous and not uh, share false information. Um, so I absolutely agree in that. But I'm saying, from the perspective of someone who's unfortunately sharing those platforms, or sharing a platform with someone like Joe Rogan, like, I mean, that sucks, but I can't like take my music off of it or anything
No, of
because I
course,
want to make
definitely,
money, you
yeah.
know? Like,
No, definitely not. No, I think the idea is more of I guess an individual problem such as Joe Rogan rather than Spotify as a platform.
yeah, and it is, the responsibility of Spotify to like it's their business, right? They need to be regulated in such a way where they are required to not put out, anti-vax and just false information, false health information like that. Like that just seems like a no-brainer, right?
Of course,
I feel like
definitely.
that's just literally that in my mind, that would be the solution. But I will say that and this is a controversial opinion probably. I don't like the idea of a platform uh, turning. I mean, obviously, this is all Joe Rogan's doing or whatever. I don't pay attention to any of this stuff. If you can't tell, I don't know. I just like to stay in my own world. But I don't like the idea of a platform taking an individual's content. Obviously, he politicized it. I mean, it was political to begin with. He's playing games with everyone, uh, and he's making a lot of money from it, which is a shitty thing to do. Um,
And it's crazy to put because he's also here based in Austin, Texas too. Kind of goes back to the whole idea thing.
get the fuck out of there while you can. You got the Tesla Bros now. You got all the bros in the domain. You got
Look, and,
bros
and it's
everywhere.
crazy. It's crazy because down here in South Texas, well, not here, but where I'm from, that's where Elon Musk moved to. Literally about 5 minutes away from my
Mm-hmm.
house, 5-10 minutes away.
Yeah,
And it's so shitty because a lot of these people are just the beaches that we had are all full of like metal scrap and crap like that. It's disgusting.
that is
Um,
disgusting.
so, but anyways,
Oh,
kind of going.
speaking of, in Washington, there's like fines for littering like on the side of the highway are like $2,500. It's like ridiculous, way more than Texas was, and I've never. Maybe it's just because there's fewer people here, or maybe the people here care more than the people in Texas. But there is like no trash anywhere on the ground. Trash is my experience in Texas is there's trash everywhere on the highways, everywhere in the city, everywhere on the sidewalk. It's just trash. No trash here at all. It's crazy.
No, of course, definitely. I think that's actually pretty good. Maybe it's. I would probably think a lot of the time people are just scared to get that $2,500 fine. Just letting
Yeah,
their McDonald's bag on the side of the road and just now getting fined $2,500.
yeah.
So I can see that for sure. Maybe that's a
Good
possibility, or
deterrent. But it could just be fewer people. I don't know. Maybe I'm
right.
also just looking in different areas, and maybe I'm just completely, like grass is. Am I doing a grass is always greener thing, or is that the wrong metaphor? I don't know. Maybe I just haven't gotten, the feeling of the place yet. Maybe all the trash is hidden. It's in the seedy underbelly,
Of course, yeah. But kind of going back to the whole back to you and your band real quick. Excuse
Oh
me.
yeah.
Um, you know, you have a pretty sizable fan base, realistically. I think that's something that's very, you achieved pretty well. And my thing is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, and someone mentioned it, I think it was so hilarious. Someone was like, they have the same music taste as I do. They have good music taste, listening and whatnot. So it was kind of like, what makes your fan base so unique compared to others? And, why are they possibly considered the best fan base, in your opinion?
I don't know if they're the best. I think they're unique. I don't know. I think we'll have to ask them mostly. But I can only say things from my perspective, and I could have, a completely biased take on it because, I'm pretty biased, being in the position that I am in. I would say my fan base is interesting or unique in that, like, there's a lot of international fans, and that's kind of always been a thing for me. Like, to begin with, when I first started releasing music, I noticed that, like, all of the support, like the financial support, I appreciate other forms of support too, but the financial support, the stuff that like really means something. Not saying that other things don't mean things too, but like, you can tell when people spend money on something, it's because they actually like it. That was all coming in from, like, Germany and Russia and Mexico City and uh, let's see where else, Brazil, like, just crazy, like, places from odd places I've never been. So I think that's really cool, just to have like a larger international fan base. I think my international fan base is larger than my US fan base. At least that's how it was when it started. I'm not sure if that's still the case. I think the numbers have evened out a little bit. It's really cool to get access to, like, statistics and stuff from Spotify or from Bandcamp or wherever, just seeing where people are listening to your music, or even from where on the internet, like, people like click on a link to, like, find your stuff. That stuff's really interesting and neat to me.
Oh, right on. Yeah, I mean, again, it's so interesting that I don't know, for me at least, right? You kind of make music in a region. Like, for example, let's just say, city A, right? Somehow, a couple people from city A listen to it, and now suddenly someone from, like you mentioned, from across the world is now listening to it. And I feel like maybe perhaps it's a very surreal feeling knowing that your art is all over the world, literally all over the world.
Yeah, I can't think about it too much. It hurts my head. It makes me want to go crawl deeper into the hole that I'm already. Yeah,
but
it's a
but
scary
yeah,
thing. That's interesting though. Yeah.
yeah, it is. And kind of now talking about your music a little bit more in particular, you know, um, how does a song come into existence, perhaps? And do you try to possibly follow any themes when you are, coming up with a song?
Yeah. For me, the songwriting process, it begins with lyrics. It begins with an idea. I'm always, like, writing things down, and using that, expanding on that. Usually I take, like, the idea, like, I start with, like, like a concept or a story when it comes to the lyrics. Then I go and work on tones on the like bass, guitar, start, just really fleshing it out. I try to, since I could basically have to do everything one at a time, right? I try to write like a whole song and then I try to record it. But yeah, so I do the drum the bass lines. I try to get a lead, do like lead after that, but it all focuses around the vocals and the lyrics, and that's where I start. And I think that's probably the strongest part of my music. I've never claimed to be a bass player or a guitarist, um, or even a vocalist, but hey, at least I have some good words every once in a while.
Again, and I'll be one of those people who say, you killed it. Now I keep saying it over and over and over, but you killed it with just everything you've done. I think that's something that's just literally awesome to listen to, because it's just a groovy tune you like to listen to. Sometimes, especially your voice comes out extremely well. It comes out very, deep, and it kind of, at least in my perception, sometimes menacing at times. But it's such an amazing feeling, and I just, and to the point we made earlier, it's the perception of the person. I could have a different perception than you, but it's just much more that it feels it makes me feel at home. I know it sounds corny as to say, but it's a feeling that makes me feel at home listening
it,
to such.
I think it's authentic.
Of course,
Let's say
definitely.
that. Yeah.
So yeah, and I mean, talking about songs, here's where the hard hitting question is. If you can only have, all individually the songs you have, they're kind of like your kids in a sense, right?
Hmm.
But if you can only pick three and shove the rest of the kids in the corner, what are your favorite three songs perhaps that you have that you've made perhaps?
Oh man, I've made a lot of songs. I mean, feel like I have to choose some of my more recent stuff just because I'm more attached to it because it's closer to me just in terms of time. Let's see. But I gotta give one out. I guess Black Cathedral. I really like, and I'll talk about in terms of releases. Like While I Disappear, that was like probably my favorite release I've ever done. It was the release that like I recorded the quickest out of necessity. I was like in a really uncomfortable place in my life. I was like sharing a, a garage apartment with like an abusive boyfriend. So yeah, I like While I Disappear. Also, I was working with like a Cination at that time, who was like a Russian rec tape label who doesn't exist anymore, but they did for like some months. I love the idea of just becoming lost media, by the way. Like I just want, yeah, that sounds amazing to me. Like that's a legacy right there. Um anyway, yeah, so for While I Disappear, just like I felt like that was like the most This Cold Night that This Cool Night could be, I think, in my mind. Uh, so I really appreciate that full release. But I guess if I had to choose one, I would choose Black Cathedral from that release. For my newer stuff, I think Letter to Myself. I Felt the Sun a lot. No, I have to choose one. I'm just going to choose one from this. Okay. No, I mean, it's not going to be either of this. I want it to be something that people probably don't even listen to. I'll do The Titan and His Tower. That's what I'll do. That song, the lyrics to me are the closest.
Right on, dude. Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, the one that sticks out to me the most, and I think that maybe it's just me being, well, no, yeah, it is biased, but more the Black Cathedral. I think that's the one that I just, again, that song where you can walk to any place, and like I mentioned, you can just flick your wrist, start snapping and everything, just listen, and it's just so much fun. I think that's the one. I think there was one time for a week I at least listened to it at least a good 50 to 100 times. I'm not even joking because it was just
I think that's what a lot of my listeners do for stuff on Spotify. I think that's why I have so many plays.
no,
It's
it's fun
just
because
like
it's
one
just
or
like
two people just listening to something 1,000 times.
no, it's fun because it's like again, you did something right when you have people constantly just again that moment where people can just go and just enjoy that, and I feel like that's just amazing. Something that I also do enjoy was more of the older stuff, kind of more. Now that I am looking back to it, and I'm looking back to your self-titled "This Cold Night" album. It is bringing back a lot of memories back in high school, right? Just looking at, for example, like Yelva. I remember that one. I don't know. It's blowing me away just looking back at this stuff. But it's a lot of fun. I think if I can take probably three, you'd probably be for sure. You'd probably be Black Cathedral, obviously number one. Enigmatic individual as well as that one. Oh my god, I had a brain fart. What is it called? Yelva. Sorry, I
Yeah,
apologize.
no
But
worries.
yeah, those are my probably my three top you've made, and of course that's not to say the rest aren't as memorable, but those are the ones that I stick with all the time. That sticks
Yeah,
with
and,
me and
and
it has memories with me.
the cool thing is like tying us back together with our conversation, like where the listener, they recreate whatever, like, hey, your favorites aren't everyone's favorites, other people have different favorites, right? So that's wonderful. We'll say, I think with my newest release, if you don't like every song, because some of the songs are, they're not all like guitar and bass, right? Like at least you'll find something you like, probably. Someone
Of course,
in
definitely, yeah,
general,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I think that's pretty neat. Yeah, like that's something I try to do with every release. I'm sure that's what most artists try to do, is just have like one or two tracks that are just like a little bit better, like a little bit more
Just a little
catchy.
pinch, right?
Yeah, because those are the ones that people like to gravitate to. And I feel like with my latest release, I'm understanding like why people do things a certain way when it comes to like, oh, this is just how it's done. This is how releases work. Like oh, you should have this song here, like whatever, like the the technical details behind the art, basically. And I think I'm going to be paying attention to that a little bit more because that's kind of like a real thing that's important that people like. For example, I don't think I'm going to release an album anytime soon. I think I'm going to release like 2 EPs, and I think the reason I'm going to do that is because uh, people like to gravitate on 1 or 2 songs per release, and if I do 2 EPs with 2 songs, 2 like really killer songs on each of those EPs, and that's 4 songs right there that people can gravitate towards. Whereas with like my last release with the album, like if you look at like statistics and plays and stuff, like what's actually getting like traction or what have you, it's like 1 or 2 songs. I just feel like it's always 1 or 2 songs from every single release,
Yeah.
and I'm hurting myself by releasing a full album. But I don't
No, but it's good.
that's just
You
my
know, you
take
have
on it.
you know you're jamming out to it, and I think I know just the other week my roommate gave me the since you were going to come up, and not just because you were going to come up, but rather I was also jamming out to you. It was more that my roommate gives me the aux on the phone, which is to in his words the most dangerous thing you can do. Um, so I started playing that, and again, it's just so much fun listening to. In fact, I think I'm not so much of an active person on Bandcamp, but literally, you were the first album when you sent me that. You were the first person that has an album on my Bandcamp there. That was pretty cool. So
Oh,
just something else a little bit memorable about that too. So of course, again, once again, thanks for that. It means a lot that
thank
you're
you.
able to do that. So, um, kind of great. You as a person now, right? Perhaps is there any artist you're listening to right now? Something on repeat, something that you just like, again, that flicking your wrist and snapping while walking downtown or something.
Oh, sure, sure. Yeah, let's. So I mean, I've kind of so I went on like this big crazy push in my life recently where I moved, I sold my home, I bought a home, I released an album. Like this is all within the past like month or 2 or whatever. So I haven't had unfortunately much time to do the walking and the snapping and listening to the music. But before that month or 2 period, yeah, that's what I was doing. And especially while I was writing my last stuff, I was listening to music all the time. I was listening to a ton of Talking Heads and Fela Kuti. I was listening to the Smiths, of course. I was listening to samba. I just listened to a lot of basically everything. I listen to everything, and the older I get and the more music I listen to, the more strange stuff I want to listen to.
No, definitely, yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, and I guess here's more of a guilty question for myself. Is more of, do you collect vinyls? Perhaps.
I used to, and then it became too expensive. But when I was
Oh, damn.
younger, when I was in college, when I had less expenses than I do have now, yeah, I was a collector, and I have a ton of records. Uh, let's see. I wish I could like just go through them and like show you each one so I can say something about them. But they're all in storage right now. But I can probably talk about a few if you want to talk about a few.
Sure, of course. Could definitely go for it.
Okay. Let's see. I'm trying to think of. Let me look at my. Oh, I don't keep my Discogs list, Fred, or my collections. What have I bought recently? I've bought. Okay, so I guess Moonface. I've been listening to a lot of Moonface, and I've made it a point to go back, and even though I don't even actually listen to records right now, like on the table, I still bought them. Okay, so I guess I do collect records then, right? Like pretend like that I don't.
I caught you red-handed,
Yeah.
man.
Okay, you got me. Yeah, so I bought all of his old stuff. But yes, Moonface. What else have I bought? Oh my gosh. There's this one just like bizarre Bandcamp thing I just bought. And I bought it because Jamie Stewart of Shoo Shoo he was a vocalist on one of the tracks. Um, I don't even remember what it was called. I have a really bad memory, by the way. I don't know if you can tell or if you've been able to tell through this interview process, but uh, it's something I have to live with. Let's see.
I know one thing I do typically when I am looking for vinyls, and I've mentioned it, I'll say it again. It's very. I always say it's probably the most dangerous thing you can do is put on some earphones and then just go to the record shop. And I know that saying where never judge a book by its cover. I
Hmm.
go there and I start doing that, and it's more that I'll leave. I'll probably come in and be like, I'm going to buy at least one record, at least, and I end up leaving with like a handful of records, and then my bank account's like, dude, you gotta chill out, man.
Yeah, yeah, and that's kind of, man, I don't know. I kind of, part of me just wants to release music for free for the rest of my life. Because music shouldn't, like, I feel like people should just be able to experience something, and they can, I mean, they can get that with like streaming stuff, I guess, digital music, but there's something to be said about having something in your hands. It's nice to have that relationship with an item, and consequently with like an artist or a song or a track or an album itself, you know, like just by having a digital stream or whatever, it's not quite the same.
Of course, definitely, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I think it's the idea of having something physical in your hands. You're having someone's art piece in your hand, and something you can just physically see moving. And I don't know, just there's something about vinyl collecting and just playing it. It's just so much fun.
Yeah, that's the it's real, you know, when it's in your hands, it's real. Every it just doesn't exist otherwise. This
Right.
you're a person in a screen. And so am
No,
I.
yeah,
I'm in a rectangle right now.
yeah, same here. See, I have like a little outline right here. See, I'm touching the walls right here. You
Yeah.
see that?
You could
When
you could even do probably the trick where you're like walking down the stairs and you're getting lower and out
just a
of
little
time.
elevator just
Yeah.
going all the way down,
There you
right?
go.
But yeah. So with music though, it plays a big role into everyone's life. And kind of going back to you, I don't mean to take away what you were mentioning, but or not mentioning, but kind of interrupt you. It's more that vinyl collecting is just a form. I don't know. A lot of the time, I remember back in the day, my dad, he had the old school Elvis Presley vinyls, the Pink Floyd ones, and they're now in storage. But for me now, I kind of, after seeing it kind of vinyls kind of pop off a bit, I now idolize them a little bit more than I should. Um,
Interesting. So it's because that other people are maybe like are saying like this thing has worth now. Now in your mind, you go, oh, this does have a
yeah,
little
yeah,
bit more
definitely, and
worth.
I think that's something that it's realistic, right? You just
Yeah, that makes sense.
and it's like I go ahead and I'm like, holy cow, like I guess it's like yeah, the more the idea that this piece of plastic that you go ahead and you put on, or I'm not sure what type of material it's made out of, but this piece of whatever it is
Acetate, I think. Oh wait,
yeah.
no, that might be for the some other part of the process. I don't know. Ignore me.
Either way,
Continue.
it's awesome. Like and now, one band that I play on repeat almost every day alongside your music is the Idols, and I don't know if you know who they are,
No idea.
but they go ahead and um, I literally have their vinyls and everything set up on my wall back at my place and whatnot. So to your point, yeah, vinyls are just also kind of addicting too. You can't get
Yeah.
enough of it.
I like the idea of having like records on the wall. I think I like the idea of if you're at least like, one of the things for me, like I've been really like trying to be at least more environmentally conscious. So like the idea of like making records, it seems kind of selfish from an environmental
Yeah.
perspective, because it's like you're just putting some bunch of chemicals and waste out into the world for vain selfish reasons for people to listen to your music or whatever.
Yeah, definitely.
But I like the idea of like, okay, so you create it and it's not just music, it can also be something you put on the wall or something, like as long as it's a multi-use thing, there's a
Yeah.
little more incentive to want to make something like that in my mind.
No,
Yeah,
no,
because I
definitely.
constantly like I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about like all of the things in the world that, like all of the things that I could do just by existing, like all of the terrible things that happen to this world just by existing, like carbon footprint stuff. And it's just like, wow, oh, you can't really have that mentality forever, or else you won't do anything, right? But as long as you're aware of it, I suppose, like you just try to do the best that you can.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally understand that. Definitely, I think that's something there. But so going back to you maybe were mentioning you were gonna mention some like music that I think on Discogs or something like that. If you still had it in mind, perhaps.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Crap, I forgot about that. I was supposed to sign into my Bandcamp and all that. Don't even worry about it. I'm not going to find it.
Oh, that's
Maybe I
fine.
will. Or you can just keep chatting. I don't want any dead air or anything,
No, yeah, so yeah, I mean, but yeah, no, like to your point, vinyl collecting is it gets really expensive, especially now that I'm about to kind of almost graduate next year. Not kind of, I am gonna graduate next year.
Well,
It's more that like now I feel like the responsibilities now. I think I'm enjoying what I have right now and what I can, fortunately get because I don't have a lot of financial responsibilities right now at the moment. But until after I graduate, it's gonna be like, damn, like all that, it's gonna be kind of gone now. All that fun stuff I could have done with vinyls and whatnot. But I mean, um,
well, and
I
also
have,
keep in mind, it's not when you graduate, your life's not over. You can
oh,
still have
definitely,
you can still have hobbies. You can still, it just depends. You just have to choose. Oh, not even that. I mean, this is something everyone deals with. You just have to choose what you spend your money on. For me, for a while, it was vinyl because that's what I had time for. You know, now I don't really have time to appreciate them. I think as much as if I were to spend the money on it and to take it away from someone else, as much as I should. So I'll let someone else take the records for now.
oh yeah, yeah. And I know that the people at Waterloo Records, they all know me. Kind of, they're the like, as soon as they see me walk in, they're like, this kid like is gonna annoy me. Because what I do is again, I think the idea, and there's also some times where I'm guilty of doing it, where I spend more than I should on one vinyl. I know there's this one band that I could not find their vinyl for the love of God. And I found it on Discogs, and I ended up spending at least $150 on that vinyl. I think that was the most expensive vinyl I've ever purchased.
Okay.
So it was just like,
I think you need an intervention.
right. As soon as my mom heard about it, she was
Mm,
like, "Are you really spending your money on stuff you need or do you want?" And I'm like, "It depends what you're trying to say and whatnot." But
yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're a collector. You have a collector's mentality, and there's nothing inherently wrong with collecting. The things you collect probably aren't, useless, right? You use them. They're probably not going to lose their value tremendously, right? I mean, in most cases, they'll only go up, right? So you can justify anything.
of course,
All
yeah.
that's saying, yeah. But $150, it's a pretty chunky set of change there. I don't know. To me, in my mind, I think I moved from record collecting in my mind to collecting like music gear, and now I'm trying to get away from that. With the move, I had to basically sell my entire studio. So now I'm really super minimal, and I'm liking it. Yeah, it's really easy for artists and musicians, or basically anyone in any field, I suppose, any
Yeah,
field at all, to fall into a trap where it's like, oh, if I have this one thing, like, oh, it'll make me sound better, it'll make me perform better, it will, give me the polish, or it'll give this track the polish that it needs in order to connect with people emotionally or whatever. Uh, and that's an easy trap to fall into. And usually, in cases, no, that's not true. You're lying to
no,
yourself.
definitely. And as far as kind of a little bit, kind of went back just a tad. Um, do you have your vinyls or any of the collection? Do you perhaps know anything, or are not just kind of blank at this point right now?
Oh, the vinyl that I
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah.
mentioning.
I just want to
Oh
make
my
sure,
god.
in the chance. If not, just totally
Uh
cool, dude.
oh no, I wanna find it. Just because I feel like more people need to listen to this band, but with my great memory, I forgot the band name, and they're so obscure, I can't even find them through the Google machine or my email. If I had the vinyl with me, which I normally would, if everything wasn't in storage, I would just grab it. Uh, uh, it honestly doesn't even matter that much. I'm sure I'll find it. I mean, is this the end of
If you
this?
do find it, if you do find it, we'll probably put it here on the screen or something,
Cool.
for the YouTube video. We'll just but yeah, but I know you just finished releasing not too long ago, about a little bit while ago, the "Are We Not Immortal Yet?" Um, so that's the project you just finished, but we're kind of looking a little bit more farther into it, and perhaps maybe. But do you have any more projects you're currently working on? I know you mentioned
Yeah.
something about the EPs, something you were trying to do, but
Yeah. Yeah. So let's see. Up next for me, I'm working on a cover. This is actually really exciting for me because I'm working on a cover. I don't know what details I can give away. I had to sign an NDA and all that stuff. I'm working on a cover of a larger band that's going to be released on a compilation album of covers by other bands of the same band. Does that make sense? It's a
No,
cover
yeah,
album.
definitely, yeah.
That's all I needed to say.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
I'm working on two covers for two different cover albums, and then I'm gonna start working on my live set for shows around the Portland and Vancouver area. Next year, it's up in the air. I might do a tour to Europe, and do some stuff with my label, but that's kind of up in the air. I don't
Dude,
know.
right on.
Listen to my current record on Spotify.
No, of course, definitely, yeah. Like, if you haven't listened to it, I feel like even after this interview, I'll be sure to bop some stuff for sure. I feel like I said, it's something that, um, if you haven't listened to, I feel like that's something you should have done like a long time ago. It's I keep saying and saying it, but it's such a magical thing to listen to. Certain albums that just resonate well with a lot of with me. So, I'll be like I said, you especially even then before the interview, I know I was bopping out to hear on the radio for a while. Some of your music, so that's always good. But I'm excited. I know you can't say too much about everything, but I am excited for the cover album what you're planning to do as well as the tour. We all wish you the best of luck there. But kind of now reflecting on everything you've done in your life, um, your
Shit.
music career rather, or yeah, just in general, right? If you can look back at your younger self, just have hold them by the shoulder. What words would you give yourself, perhaps?
I feel like I'm on RuPaul or something. What would I tell my younger self? Um, I would probably say that care less about other people. Yeah, because at the end of the day, you're only stuck with yourself, right?
No, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you just stopping by and you taking the time out of your day just to chill out of here and have fun. It was an honor having you over, and it means a lot that you're giving the time out of your day, your busy schedule, to just come in and talk to some regular college student, just chilling out here. So,
Hey man, I'm just a regular old software engineer, so
right on,
we're both regular human beings just trying to figure it out.
right on, man. Well, like I said, thanks so much. Perhaps is there any closing thoughts or statements you want to put? Anything you want to plug in? Um, Anything you wanted to say before we call it here?
Sure. Yeah, I just want to touch again on the therapy stuff. It really helped me. If you're struggling, even if you think it won't help you, just give it a shot. There's a lot of really cool free resources available online, which are helpful too. And yeah, survive. Just keep surviving. That's all you can do. You only get one life.
Right on. Well, yeah, guys, thanks for everyone for listening and watching. I know people here could be watching on YouTube perhaps right now. But yeah, thanks for tuning by. You can find Chase's stuff on This Cool Night. It's on streaming platforms, correct?
It's on everything.
On everything.
Yeah.
There you go. He just released like I mentioned, the new album. Are We Immortal Yet? You can listen to it right now. In fact, do that right now after you listen to this. And thanks for coming by. We appreciate you and have a good one, man.
Cool. Yeah, I appreciate being here. Thank you for taking the time, and I hope everyone has a good rest of their day. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
See ya.